Hey everybody, it's been a while. My name is Brian Brindley. I am your host, and this is the Games We Play podcast, where I am going through the sporting world however often I feel like recording these. I know it's been a while since I've recorded these, and I have decided to remove the video component from these for the time being, just so that I can produce more content. I don't have a reliable camera right now. I normally would shoot on my smartphone, but it's kind of giving me issues lately, and I just want to dedicate as much time as I can to just making engaging content for you guys. So for the time being, it's just going to be a static YouTube video because SoundCloud eventually you will run out of space. Other platforms you will run out of space until I get a solid production schedule going and I get a better feel for how I want to do this. This is just going to be an audio only presentation on YouTube, but I will make sure to advertise it on social media. So follow me at Brian Brindley on Twitter. I will let you guys know when new podcast episodes are coming out. But for today, let's just get started with a quick podcast to kind of warm myself back up and get myself back into the groove. So first thing on the docket, obviously the pandemic is being caused by that shall remain nameless throughout this podcast so that I don't get demonetized. Not like it matters because I don't make any money off of this, but we can start with this. I saw this headline on ESPN last night when I was browsing topics that I would do for today's show. Arizona pauses plan for athletes return to campus amid COVID-19 surge. So for those of you that don't know, I am located in Tucson, Arizona. I recently moved back in with my parents after some just work issues, and obviously the pandemic is affecting us all in individual ways. So I'm back in Tucson, Arizona. Pima County is currently having let's just say a rough time with the virus, and it looks like it's even going to affect college. And I know that one of my friends is actually a high school football coach in the area, and he has talked to me about how they're uncertain about what their future is going to be, because Southern Arizona teams are nervous to schedule games against each other and block out a real definitive schedule because they don't know how this virus is going to affect us going forward. And I think it's going to be really interesting. I hope I can get more information on that end from him as well as other people probably to kind of give you guys more of an insight into even the high school level athletics, which I think is a part of the equation that is sorely missing in national discourse right now. Obviously, the focus is going to be on professional sports because those are the money makers. That's what ESPN and Fox Sports and CBS Sports, they all are going to cover that. But high school sports, they are going to be affected by this massively as well. And that obviously is going to be a topic for another day. But today, let's focus on the collegiate level, kind of the middle step between that high school to professional level. So this article is written by Adam Rittenberg. He's an ESPN senior writer, and I'll read you a little bit of it. Arizona paused its plan to bring athletes back to campus Monday, citing a surge in COVID-19 cases in Pima County and the coronavirus pandemic's impact on the local healthcare system. Sorry, I can't read very well. On June 15th, the school started bringing athletes back for voluntary workouts in groups of approximately 20, with new groups arriving each week. Arizona said Monday that it has received only one positive COVID-19 result after testing 83 athletes in the past few weeks. So that's good news, right? Arizona, by Arizona, it means the University of Arizona. And one positive COVID-19 result after yielding 83 tests, that's pretty good. Obviously, numbers wise, you don't want any of them, but 1 out of 83 is not bad, right? Arizona is awaiting clarification on whether it can continue workouts with athletes already on campus after Governor Doug Ducey on Monday ordered all gyms in the state to close for 30 days as a result of the COVID-19 spike. I have personally been affected by this as well. This is me talking outside the article now. My gym of choice is also closed down, which is disappointing for me because I do like getting a workout in, but I also understand it. And honestly, when I was going to the gym, and I'm in Tucson, Arizona, as I said before, so I've seen people were not wearing masks in the gym. I think that there's like a subtle like social understanding between people when you go to the gym that, hey, if you're in the gym, you're sweating, you're breathing hard, you're around a lot of people. So maybe people aren't as worried necessarily as they maybe should be when they go to the gym and they're not wearing masks in this area. But I mean, that's a pretty big worry for people that are in charge of college athletes, because there's a lot of team lifting when you're in football. You normally have a partner or a group that you're lifting with, especially in your positions like receivers and linemen and all that kind of stuff. You're doing a lot of group work, even when you're doing individual workouts. So I would imagine that football is the main concern here. But I'm sure that it's a bunch of different sports as well, because, these athletes in college that are on scholarship or not even on scholarship, they're working year round and they're working as a group, even when they're in the gym, just working out and training. So Arizona is awaiting clarification on whether it can. Oh, sorry, I already read that part. Arizona reported 3,858 positive COVID-19 cases Sunday, marking its highest single-day total and the seventh report of more than 3,000 cases in the previous 10 days. Pima County now has more than 7,500 confirmed cases. Obviously, this is disappointing. And it continues here. Quote, the health, safety, and well-being of all members of our community is our number one priority, Arizona Athletics Director David Heek said in a prepared statement. We will continue to work in conjunction with campus partners and our local government agencies to support and evaluate a safe and healthy return to campus. So Arizona is supposed to start their formal football activities July 6th. That is a week away. That is really, really close. Their season opener is August 29th. And I know that, for me especially, that was kind of a wake-up call. I remember the other day I was thinking about it and I was like, college football starts August. But I mean, we're still in spring, but really we're in summer now. I mean, I keep forgetting that not only is it June, it's nearly July. July is tomorrow at the time of recording this. And I feel like while we're just so chomping at the bit for the NBA to come back and we're kind of curious to see what the NFL does, I think that kind of middling step, because college football starts before the NFL starts, I think that I and probably others, if I'm experiencing it, I would assume that others are as well, are kind of forgetting that these seasons start at different times and that these college kids are kind of up in the air right now. A lot of people don't know if school is going to be the same. I know I just finished my last semester at school and it was entirely different than every other semester because you couldn't go to in-person classes and nobody could. I was online by that point because I had fulfilled all my in-person classes I needed. But also there's people that do need to go to those classes, and that's a big concern. And I'm sure that those people are kind of stressed about that. They're anxious about waiting and seeing, is school going to be the same? And for athletes, it's doubly so because sports are particularly affected by this. And a lot of those kids rely on their athletics to pay for their school. So this is concerning, especially locally, because it's affecting our community directly in Tucson, at least with the University of Arizona. I would not be surprised if Arizona State, the college I just graduated from, go Devils. I would not be surprised if they're also dealing with this stuff as well right now. And the unfortunate thing is that we kind of just have to wait and see if people are going to do the right thing. And I know that it can be really, really hard to make sacrifices. And I know that it's really, really difficult, but I think that we really need to make sure that these kids are safe. Not kids, they're adults. That these young men and women are safe. That's the number one priority. It absolutely should be the number one priority. I'm okay with missing out on watching a couple college football games, not going to a couple U of A tailgates, if it means that these kids are at a lower risk of their health. And our next topic is also going to concern the virus and how it is affecting sports as well. But for right now, I'm going to take a break. I need to get a glass of water, and I will be right back. Okay, and we are back. I actually got a ginger ale instead of a water, so call me a liar if you want to, but I mean, what really would that do? But let's get back to the actual matter at hand. So obviously the NBA is posed for its restart. It's starting to gear up. People are getting excited, even though there was the whole business with Kyrie Irving and the kind of drama that ensued around that. And obviously there's players that are electing not to make the trip. Avery Bradley comes to mind. There's others as well, obviously, but there's a lot of news around that. And I could talk about J.R. Smith signed to the Lakers. I'm not going to dive into that, but I will say anytime I see J.R. Smith, I am very, very happy to do so because he is if nothing else, he is a spectacle. So I am always excited to see what's going to happen when he comes onto the court, and I can't wait to watch that. But that's not really worth a deep dive. Instead, what I think is kind of worth an update is this story that DeAndre Jordan has tested positive for coronavirus, and he will not join the team in that Disney Orlando bubble thing. The article I'm getting is from CBSSports.com. It's written by Sam Quinn. And the articles that I talk about in this podcast will be linked in the description for you to read. But let's just read a little bit of this as well. Excuse me. DeAndre Jordan has tested positive for COVID-19 and will not join the Brooklyn Nets at Disney, he announced on Twitter Monday. He caught the virus while in Brooklyn with the Nets, who are not scheduled to travel to Orlando until July 7th. Now, this is, I think, a really interesting part of the story. He caught the virus while in Brooklyn with the Nets. This is really interesting to me. That coughing in the background is my father. I apologize. I think that's a really interesting development, that he caught it while in Brooklyn with his team. Now, a lot of these people that catch the virus aren't necessarily with the team. Obviously, Rudy Gobert comes to mind, and luckily it was really controlled, despite him acting reckless when Rudy Gobert acted reckless. And of course, he's apologized now, and the whole thing with Donovan Mitchell, all that kind of jazz. All that kind of jazz. Anyway, God, that was really bad. I thought it was funny. Maybe you guys will too. We'll see. But when that happened, it was a really big deal. It was like, okay, now everybody on the team has to get tested. Obviously, with DeAndre Jordan, if he was away from the team and he tested positive for it and he hadn't come into contact with any of his teammates, he probably would have announced it, and I don't think it would have caused as big of a splash for me. I would have been like, oh, well, a lot of people are getting it. I've had it as well personally. So, I mean, it's going to happen. But this is interesting because it could mean that you're also missing more people. Now, keep in mind, Brooklyn Nets already don't have Kyrie, already don't have KD. They're out for injury, not for coronavirus. But now they're without DeAndre Jordan, their third best player. And it's just such an unfortunate situation because only a select number of teams got to even go to this Orlando bubble. And it's almost like, I don't want to say that they're just like an automatic loss in the column, basically, and they're just going to kind of get swept out of the way, and like the Wizards will get in or something like that. But I mean, it does kind of make you feel a way. It's kind of like, oh man, that does kind of suck that these people are going to have to risk their health, possibly other players on the Nets, for what really is kind of a moot point at this point. It really was a moot point already. I don't think anybody believed that the Brooklyn Nets were going to be some dark horse candidate to really make a splash and get far in this little bubble playoff thing. But this is also interesting. Earlier Monday, Spencer Dinwiddie also revealed he had tested positive for coronavirus, but his status for Orlando is not yet known. So we'll see if that develops, because if he's out, I mean, that's your four best players, or at least your four most marketable, most exciting players for your fan base. And that would be a really big loss for Brooklyn. And it also would be like, maybe other players on the team would drop out and be like, hey, our four best dudes aren't going. Maybe you have like a girlfriend at home. Maybe you have a son or a daughter, or you live with your parents. You see your parents a lot, and you don't want to risk that, not only for your own health, but when you're in that bubble, you can't hang out with those people for a while. And so there might be people that are like, hey, I don't want to risk that when I know that this team is not going to make that big of a splash in this playoff bubble thing. And I wonder if the team can entirely withdraw. I wonder if that's an option. If the whole team comes together and they say, listen, if they say, listen, we know that we really don't stand a fighting chance, and we don't think that the risk is worth the reward at this point. Because that's what they're doing with the other teams. They could have brought all of the teams to Orlando and had them still play out their games that are remaining. But the argument is really that they don't want that many people all encompassed together, because that just increases the risk and there's no reward. Well, what about a team that technically still has a fighting chance? They still have that fighting chance to get into the playoffs. But if they're really being honest, they really don't have a chance to make any sort of splash. And that's really what you're risking. I totally understand the Lakers. I understand the Rockets. I understand the Clippers. I understand the Sixers. I understand a lot of teams that actually have at least some sort of chance at the glory taking this risk. And obviously it should be left up to individual players on those individual teams. If they're like, hey, I have a daughter at home, a newborn, and I don't want to risk her health just for the chance at maybe getting a ring. But I think the organization, it totally makes sense for them to be like, no, we can win a ring and we can bring glory to this dynasty, or we can bring glory to this team. And that's why we're making this health risk. We know that it's a risk, but everybody is individually buying in. You have the right to not buy in, but we're still going to make this push. That totally makes sense to me. But I wonder if there's a possible chance that the Nets could come together and be like, oh, listen, we know that it's mathematically possible, but like, who are we really kidding here? I wonder if that could even happen. I would be really, really curious to see if that happens. Our final topic of the day that we're going to move on to, we will get into as soon as I get back. I'm going to take a little bit of a break, but we're going to talk about Cam Newton becoming a New England Patriot quarterback. Okay, everybody, we are back. And for the final topic of the day, let's talk about Cam Newton becoming a New England Patriots quarterback. Now, while I'm looking up the details of the contract, because I didn't before this podcast, because I am a loser, first off, I'm really, really curious how this is going to work out. Because Cam Newton is a fiery, very passionate, very emotion-driven guy, and Bill Belichick is none of those things. Bill Belichick is driven, it seems, mostly just by results. He doesn't really care about the particulars. He cares about the particulars for sure, but he doesn't care about like the social media kind of stuff. He is not really into the flashiness. He'll take chances on guys if he sees talent, but I mean, I'm really just curious how this mix is going to work, first off, personality wise. But second off, I wonder how much action Cam Newton is going to see, because I'm not Cam Newton's biggest fan. I have made it very clear in the past that I think that his style of play, while it's really flashy and it's really entertaining to watch, especially when it's at its best, his MVP season comes to mind, but it does have its downsides. And we've seen that injury-wise. He has been a injury-ridden quarterback for a pretty long time at this point, or a pretty substantial amount of his career. His talent is undeniable. He can make deep throws. He is athletic. He's a good leader, I think, in the locker room. I think that that's going to be interesting to see how that works within the locker room, because you're going from a guy in Tom Brady that, like, yes, he's a leader and yes, everybody respects him, but it's almost like a seniority thing. It's like you kind of just immediately have to respect Tom Brady when you walk in a locker room, because he's almost definitely, well, I think definitely at this point been there longer than you have, and he has the rings to prove it. I mean, they don't even all fit on one hand. He has the hardware to prove that, hey, I am talented enough, I am smart enough, I am experienced enough to win us a Super Bowl. Now, we'll see how that works in Tampa Bay. I think it will, just because, again, it's really hard to argue with the results, and I think that people just inherently respect him. And Cam is a fun leader, and I think he's a respectable presence in the locker room. I think that was kind of evident in how many people were excited that he got a contract, and how many of the Patriots players seem to be pretty pumped to have him on the roster. But it's a different kind of leadership that he has, where I think that even when Tom Brady is not playing well, you still have to respect him. Cam Newton is coming off of injury. He was cut by his former team, and he doesn't have the hardware to prove it. He has an MVP. Yes, he does, but he doesn't have a Super Bowl to prove it. And he got to that Super Bowl, and he didn't lose that Super Bowl. I wouldn't say he lost the Super Bowl. I think it was just the Denver Broncos defense in that Super Bowl was it was just insane. So was the Panthers defense, to their credit, but I mean, I'm getting off track. But let's look at the contract really quick. It's a 1-year contract. It's a really, really, it's based heavily on incentives, which is totally understandable because he's coming off of injury and this is really like a proving year. The incentives are up to $7.5 million. In my opinion, that's an absolute steal for a quarterback of Cam's caliber and of his experience. I wonder how often he's going to start because he's not very entrenched in the system. This is kind of late in the game to get signed as a free agent, especially as a quarterback. And I mean, it seems like there is a pretty big affinity for Jarrett Stidham in that Patriots locker room and in that coaching staff. So we'll see how much time that he gets. But what I think is going to be interesting is to see if Belichick almost lightens up to kind of shake this image that he is kind of being prescribed by the media in a way because of, Tom Brady's on social media and he's acting like a human being and not like a robot for once. Well, he still acts like a robot because he's not natural at all, even when he's trying to be like this cool dude, when he's trying to be cool and he's trying to be, this kind of social media savvy, and it just comes off as really pandery to me personally, because I know when it's genuine and when it's not. And with Cam, it is genuine. He is a star. He is a presence. He's entertainment. And I wonder how that's going to mix with Belichick. Maybe that will actually help Belichick shed the image of being this crotchety old man that forced Tom Brady to do all this kind of stuff and barked orders and didn't take into account that Tom did do a lot for Bill. And it went the other way around as well, obviously. But I'm really interested to see how this dynamic works. I will have my eyes glued to the television whenever there is a Patriots game on this year. In the past, I didn't even do that when they were, having these crazy runs and winning every game but 3 or 4. But this year, I think, is going to be the most interesting Patriots year in a long time. Even last year was supposedly the more interesting year, but I would argue that I'm way more interested in watching this season. But yeah, I obviously hope Cam Newton the best. I think that this is a play-in kind of year. He does well. He does, he puts up decent numbers, and he's a good leader in the locker room, and he shows a lot of hard work. He gets the Belichick cosign maybe for a couple coaches. He whispers in a couple of years, hey, I know you need a quarterback, and, Cam's a really hard worker, and he'll do a lot of good work for you. And maybe he gets signed by somebody else. But that is going to be it for this episode of the Games We Play podcast. This has been episode 10, and I have been your host, Brian Brindley. Give it a like if you liked it. Give it a dislike if you disliked it. But let me know in the comments why you liked it or why you disliked it. Suggest topics for me in the future. And follow me on social media on Twitter at Brian Brindley, BrianBrindley. And that's going to be it. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Until then, take care.